Hello viewers, I'm SB and welcome to Voxelgram 2. This is a puzzle game that came out last week. Obviously it is the sequel to Voxelgram, which I was a huge fan of. And if you liked that game, this is a more complicated version of those same mechanics applied across 250 new puzzles. It also, incidentally, contains all 250 of the first game's puzzles and all of the first game's DLC puzzles, and it has Steam Workshop access, and people built a lot of stuff in the Steam Workshop for the last one. I wouldn't be surprised to see that be the case here. So this game is $10 when it's full price. Right now, it's on 10% off introductory sale. Hugely worth it. Just like a ton of puzzles for the money. But let's get into what these puzzles actually are for those of you who are not familiar. So the way puzzles are presented to you in Voxelgram 2 is as a sort of a diorama here. You see, you get served a scene with a bunch of rectangular prisms with the blocks in it, and each one of these is a little puzzle of its own. And once broken down, they're going to form a scene together. You can see this one is titled Breakfast, so we have some idea where we're headed. Let's just jump into our first puzzle. So as you can see, these are 3D Picross style puzzles, or nonograms if you prefer. And the big difference from the first game is that in this game, hints are given to you in two different colors. And the idea is you'll end up painting some number of these blocks with one of your paintbrushes. Any block that does not get painted gets chipped away, and after you've done that, you should have a voxel structure that resembles some kind of object. In this case, some kind of breakfast object. So pretty simply here, working in green first, we can see this line here has 5 green cells in it, and since there are only 5 blocks in that line, we can just mark them all. Same deal here. This line has two blocks in it, and they must be in a contiguous group of 2. So it's either this one and that one, or this one and this one. We can go ahead and just delete those 2 right away. Same deal here. This notation, the 2 with a little rectangle, a little square around it, and the 1 here, notes that there are 2 blocks in this line, but there is a single gap of some size between them. So this is one of them, and then the other one will be one of these 2. We don't quite have enough information to work that out yet. We'll get there. Is there anything else we can say for sure about this line? Okay, the 4. Since this is one of the blocks, any combination of 4 contiguous blocks will contain at least these 3 squares, right? And then either that or that as the 4th. And then let's dig down here, switch to our other brush, and here we can see this is very easy. The whole bottom layer is painted blue. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. So for this one, for this line here, obviously we have to have 3 blocks, and there has to be a gap. The gap is not optional, so we know this cannot be colored green because then there wouldn't be a gap. So we can eliminate that, which tells us that for this line, these are our 2 blocks. Which means that for this line here, which must be 3 blocks with a gap, neither of these 2 can be painted. And so we have a paint there. For this line of 2, that one must be true, and now there are 3 painted in this line, so we can chip away these extra bits. Here's our 4th for that line, chip away the last extra bit, and there we go. It's cutlery. It's a very low resolution cutlery. If we return to the scene, you can see where it's laid out on the table, but obviously with all the other stuff still unresolved, it's sort of hard to see and it kind of doesn't look like much. So that's the idea. We just go through these puzzles applying that same kind of logic, but it can get a little tricky. So like in that last puzzle, which was very introductory, the 2 different colors were each confined to their own layer, but that's not broadly how they work. For example, this line here tells us that there are 2 green cells with a gap of some type between them, but that gap doesn't have to be unpainted cells. It could be cells of the other color as well. So this is how both of these columns work, which finishes off this line. And now for these bottom lines, we know that there's a contiguous group of 2 blue cells somewhere in there. So we can do this thing for both of them. And it gets a little tricky because you have to make sure before chipping away any block that it isn't actually part of the other color, right? That it isn't actually something that's supposed to be around and just painted the other color. So let's see here. We have, again here, contiguous groups of 2 that must occupy the middle. And since that's true, this row must look like this, right? Then we can say for these 2 columns, in order to avoid the 2 cells being grouped up, these 2 must be painted in the top line. And then one of these 2 cells down here is green, but we can't say which just yet. We can go ahead and clear these cells because they only have green hints on them. So one thing that is important to do is like check all 3 axes of a cell before cutting it. If it only has one color of hints attached to it, as this one does, green in this axis, green in this axis, and then nothing on this axis, then when you know it can't be that color, you can just remove it. But cells like these ones that have hints of both colors, you have to verify that they're both clear. And now that those are gone, we know that these columns finish out this way, which finishes this row out this way, which finishes these other columns off that way. And that's how you keep doing it. You just have these sort of like information cascades, right? It's very much like all of the other spatial puzzle games that I like to play on the channel. And now that we know this, and this is going to work out exactly the same as the previous thing, right? Because it is marked in exactly the same way. All right, there we go. It's a glass full of something. Who knows what? All right, sometimes you'll get a 0 hint. Lines with a 0 hint on them are guaranteed clear, and you can just remove them right away. If you click the skip trivial button here, it just deletes all the 0 lines for you right at the beginning. And here, this one looks like we can break into this one pretty easily here because we have a few complete lines. And now that we've marked the blue, we know that these green ones are set because these 2 cells only have hints that are blue on them, and we know they can't be blue. We can go ahead and delete those safely. 3 with 2 gaps in it across 5 cells necessarily has to look like this, right? So we can go ahead and fill all of that in. But we don't know whether these cells will be blue or deleted, so we have to leave those for now. Okay, and then one of these 2 will be green, but we don't have that information yet. You can see down here at the bottom there is a cube representing the dimensions of the initial puzzle, so that it's easy enough for you to say 5. Okay, that is just the full number of cells in that direction. Easy enough to eyeball for right now, but eventually you end up working with puzzles that have, if the first game is anything to go by, you'll end up working with puzzles that have, sizes of 15, 16 in a direction. And at that point, it does help to have the machine count it for you a little bit. All right, there are only, I guess I don't have to switch colors to delete. There are only green hints on those blocks. And then we can see these have both been reduced. These columns have both been reduced to a single cell. So we know those can be marked. You're all good. This column needs its blue marked, and these are both empty. And then we can do the same thing over here. Once again, I almost changed colors just to delete some stuff. That's passably a croissant. Yeah, so this is the thing. This is Voxelgram 2. Obviously, this is puzzle set 4 of 20 or something. So obviously, they do get quite a lot more challenging than this. But I have always found nonogram games, particularly 3D nonogram games, and particularly the original Voxelgram, which I have an awful lot of hours in, to be really, really excellent. Chill my brain out on a stressful day kind of games. And, you can just sort of take it bit by bit, Mark the things you can see. Don't worry about the things you can't solve yet. I think we're pretty safe. Because this has no hints on it in those two axes, and it can't fit within the 4 hint, we're pretty safe deleting this right now. Yeah, and it's just like it's a very sort of like iterative problem-solving process. You do what you can when you can, and then you turn the puzzle over and look at it from another angle. These are only blue hinted, so I think they're safe to delete. The little orange underline is a hint that's here to help you. The orange underline tells you there's something that you can do on that axis. Either there's painting or removing that is logically possible given the painting and removing that you've already done. In this case, obviously, it's very easy to finish off these 2 with a gap things. These tiles must be included in the 4, and this one must not. And then to finish this last bit, okay, we can see that row is finished already, which means you are painted and you are painted. And it's the butter. Yeah, I go through a lot of puzzle games. Go through is a rough way to describe it. Like, you know what I mean, though? Like, I play a lot of puzzle games, which means I need a lot of puzzle games because I find myself burning through the ones that I have very, very quickly. And I find that like this type is definitely among my favorites. The original Voxelgram, definitely among my favorites. Okay, so now that we've marked these, and we have these blue ones that we can work with, we know we can go on that axis in a second here. This group of 3 has to be contiguous, so we know that gets painted. These will not be used. All right, here we have no green hints and only 1 survivor. So let's go ahead and mark those. That will get us clearance on these columns, but unfortunately that's not enough to make any huge moves just yet. This, we now know, any contiguous group of 3 is going to contain that. And yep, we can do the same thing on the other side. See, I want to delete this cell. My old school Voxelgram 1 brain is telling me this cell is safe to delete, but all I actually know about it is that it's not blue. I don't know that it's not part of the puzzle. It could absolutely be part of the green group of 3. So I'm finding that I have to restrain myself a little bit. Oh, right. Yeah, I have these things where there's blue at the edges and then necessarily a group of 3 green in the middle, which means that our groups of 2 with 1 separation have to be blue here, which lets us clear these corner bits, which lets us mark those as blue, and the interiors as green. Down here we have rows that only have 1 cell in them, and then we're going to end up with the same thing up here, I'm sure. How can I... Right, this is how we start doing that. Any good nonograms puzzle will be constructed such that you will never need to guess, and that is certainly true of these. These are all guaranteed solvable. And again, it doesn't look like too much of a big deal with these early ones. I chose to do this on an early group of puzzles so that I would be able to do it while talking without looking like a fool. So these ones are quite easy, but eventually they will get quite challenging. Okay, we can do a lot of marking up here. This one only has 1 cell in that column, and then we're only 4 tall. So anytime you have a broken up group where the group size plus the number of breakups is the full size of that axis of the puzzle, you can always mark the endpoints. The ending 2 bricks will always be part of the shape. Same deal here with the 4 plus 1. And while we're at it, let's mark this 5. And then because of the way the blue and the green intercut each other, we know this must be blue, and that cuts out the greens, so those must be green. that is pretty handy. I am kind of like riding the audio sliders live here because it's not a big deal when you're just playing the game, but for the purposes of recording, the audio tracks are not all quite the same volume, has been my experience. Okay, so we have a contiguous group of 2 blue, but we know we can't just delete this like I was about to because actually, right, there's a green hint on that. And in fact, looking at the nature of the green hint, this must be green. So yeah, we'll just run through. I don't know if we'll finish the entire breakfast diorama. I didn't. Some of the puzzles. Wait, hold on. That's not. Oh no, that is safe to do. That's a green hint. Some of the dioramas have a lot of puzzles in them. Okay, we gotta be careful deleting around the blue hints, but we can mark all this stuff as green at least. And then gotta find room for 1 blue cell here, which we absolutely have. This will just be empty. Here's our blue cells for those lines. This line is just green hints. And that means this will be our final there. That is, okay. Some kind of donut with filling. Sometimes I don't know how you people do it. Okay, so we know we got some groups here. Let's just like mark all the really easy, fast stuff first, and then we can work on the more challenging things. All right, so since we have contiguous groups starting right at the edge, those are pretty easy to draw out. And then we know this. Here we have our 2, and since there are no further hints on these lines, we know all this stuff can just be chipped away. The 4 here goes out to there. So no blue cells can be adjacent to each other. Here we need to have 2 gaps in the group of 3. Since we know we're done with blue cells in this line, we can delete this thing, which solves the column for us. Neither of these 2 can be live. We're done with green cells here, which means that's the last cell for this slice. And one thing I really like about these 3D games is there's a pretty wide variety of different approaches you can take. This game features a lot of different ways of like viewing the piece. Some people really prefer to have a single slice available at the same time. It certainly makes it easier to see all the hints on all sides of a particular cell. And you can use mouse wheel or keyboard to sort of like zoom back and forth through the puzzle. There's a bunch of different visibility options you can turn on and off the hint lines and stuff. These are always visually very customizable, which I do appreciate. This is neither green nor blue, we can guarantee. So let's go ahead and cut that. This isn't blue, this one is, okay. It's the same thing as the last layer, but for some reason I felt I needed to tackle it differently. As they get slightly, as they get somewhat larger, they become more and more like real world readable as the object they're supposed to be. So a 5 across here tells us that this blue column resolves like this, which means this green row down here, we can start like that. This blue row looks like this. Can't always get a lot of information right off the bat like that. But this should be enough to start with. And then 2 tells us that. Now we have a bunch more 5s on this axis, but unfortunately, because we are now looking at a row length of 6, the 5s are a little bit less significant. We know these 4 cells are involved at least. This blue group is ready to come together, and none of these cells have any green hints on them, so we can just go ahead and wipe them. Same deal here. Let's see, yeah, any group is going to contain those. We can safely delete this cell and this cell because they can't be blue and they don't have any green hints, but this one we have to hold on to for the moment. So we're not sure that it's not part of the puzzle yet. Okay, for contiguity reasons, these have to be true. Okay. It's coming together. Slowly but surely it's coming together. So that'll be 5 cells. Oh, hold on. Can't delete that yet, but at least we know it's not green. Over here, we now have this one completed, which completes that and that. Down here, 3 cells gets us this row of 1. It's pretty easy to mark. Okay, we only have enough room left here for the green cells that we need. This one we can't quite work out yet. Okay, so we know you're not green. I guess this row is finished, so we know you are blue. Okay, this one will have to be blue then, because there has to be a gap between the blues. Do we have that same kind of thing over here? Yep, has to be a gap between the blues. Easy enough. And that means we've got 3 blues in this row, which gets us 3 blues in this set. I'm never sure. Oh, I've got an error, it looks like. All right, we'll go untangle that in a second. That's going to have to be green for this reason. So what have I done wrong here? I need to have a contiguous group of... Oh, did I mark... Okay, something's wrong. Let's zoom down on this from the top. Let's just get this row out here and try to figure out what I did. So there needs to be a group of 3 contiguous blues here. And there needs to be a group of 3 contiguous greens. I think I must have, in error, deleted these middle blocks because the shape makes sense if those middle blocks exist and are green and the blocks outside of them are blue. Just some sort of silly logical error that I made when I was going too fast. At least it was not very difficult to untangle. Let's see, here we have... well, I guess I can't delete that, right? It's got a blue hint on it. It's so... Most of the games of this type I have played are either single color or they do a thing where they put the colors, both of the colors on each axis. So like if this was indeed 3 greens and a blue here, it would say, 3 green, 1 blue. Which obviously makes the puzzles a lot easier. The logic is a little bit less satisfying to work out. So see, now we can delete this because we know that its blue hint is resolved. We already have the 1 cell for this row, and we already have the 3 green for this column. So we can do that here, but not here, except we kind of, but I mean, for the moment, those weren't marked, and so it technically wasn't safe to resolve yet. And then for the rest of this, it's all just blue hints. Okay. That's the kind of thing I reckon I'm going to be vulnerable to for quite some time because I'm a little quick to jump back to the comfortable way of doing things. I'm very used to things functioning a certain way. All right, so we get our edges here. So we know one of these is not going to be blue, so as to satisfy the 4 with a break, and we'll get there. All right, contiguous groups of 3 look like this, and that means these cells are clear on both both blue and green requirements. Here's our contiguous groups of blue. That means for that purpose, this is done, and that means this row can only look like that. These ones are good as far as green goes. This cell is solved in both green and blue. As is this one, actually. And in fact, this one is also. And this is, yeah, three blue is good. Oh, right, that's... So this is a good example of where it's easy to miss a hint in an axis if you're not compressing things. Because I'm looking at the bottom here and I'm seeing, well, this face is clean, and this face of that same block is sated. The marking for this is so far away that I'm not seeing it in time. Silly mistakes, easily fixed. Delicious apples. Silly mistakes, but they're easy to make. Okay, a group of 3 contiguous greens is going to look something like that. This can't be a part of two contiguous blocks, obviously, and that means that these are the only ones that could possibly be that group of 2. This is finished except for this block, which we can't delete because it could be blue. And I think from there we can just move on to the next row. These are 6s, so they take up the whole thing. This 4 is guaranteed to be using the 2 centers at least. And I think we have to move forward. For 2 and a break, that's our break, which means this row is now finished. No green hints in it. But beyond that, we haven't got much. Obviously, we can fill in these rows very easily. And then we can mark some green blocks here. Any group of 3 in these columns is going to contain this cell, and that gives us some amount of clearance again. And then we know that the groups of 3 cannot reach this high, which means these 2 are green, these 2 are not. All right, and we've eliminated enough blocks in this axis to give us these front corners. These are all just green hints. These ones are not marked from that side, sadly. Okay, that's all just green hints. Also, all just green hints here. The blue hint tells us that's got to be blue. I don't think we can make any more progress here just yet. We can delete this cell, but the 2 on the outside could be green still. These ones are done, and I believe here we can delete a couple of these blocks, but not. Well, no, sorry. This one is satisfied on that axis as well. Yeah, these are both done. Okay, and I believe, yeah, these sort of legs have been settled now on every axis. So that's good. Okay, this block's hints are solved in both the blue and green direction. We do have all of the cells that we're looking for. Same is true here. I can see that kind of like visual verification of solutions that don't include the block itself getting a lot more difficult when you're working a puzzle that has, 14, a depth of 14 or something like that. You can see that being very challenging indeed. All right, having to mark these bottom ones is going to help us solve the upper rows. Right, that gives us the column of 3, which tells us where this contiguous group of 3 is. The napkin holder. And this tends to be the case. As you move through the puzzles in a diorama, the further you get in, the larger and more complex you are looking at. Here's an easy one of these. For the sake of contiguity, that has to draw like that. So we know this block's not blue, but that's not enough to delete it just yet. At least these 2 blocks will have to be blue. All 5 of these ones are blue. Since this is 5 blocks in total, we know the outsides at least will be blue. There will be 1 missing block in the middle there. Though we cannot at this moment say which. And greens and greens and greens. Since this must be green for this 4, it does lock down the position of that green group of 3 right away, but we still can't delete this yet because it might end up being blue. Okay. I think we got some good stuff done there. There'll definitely be some things to work with on this axis. So for example, we know this can't be part of the contiguous group of 3 for this row, so this must be in this column. Right here in blue, obviously, in order to leave a gap in the 4, we have to mark that there. The 4 contiguous here goes like that. A group of 3 contiguous in this row will leave this cell marked no matter how it's arranged. Yeah, we can go ahead and follow. You can see me like hesitating every time we get to a point where I can delete a block, as I'm just like doing a quick extra once over. Like, am I missing any colors anywhere on the faces that are assigned to this block? Okay. So this group of 5 has to have a gap in it somewhere, but it can't be on the edges. These are done, and none of these are marked in blue at all. Okay, this is mostly deletable. And all right, we've definitely hemmed some stuff in the middle in a useful way here. As we go back over this, I think we're going to find there is more stuff we can fill in now. That's got to be blue. That's got to be blue. All that's got to be green. All this stuff is painted. Okay, the outsides of this will have to be, so that has to not be. That's nice and easy. This could still be green. This one's taken a few more passes than I would like. What am I missing? It feels like I'm still missing something. Okay, well there are adjustments still to be made in the old way. Okay, this block is solved. We have 3 and 2 on those corners. So yeah, that's all good. We know this must be green for the 2 and 1, which means it doesn't mean a ton for that just yet. Does not allow us to solve any of the axes of that 4. But this stuff we can all chip away. We know that this can't be part of any clue that we can see. This is all done. This is all done, and if I'm not mistaken, that should leave us with just one cell in that, in that row where there's the 1, allowing us to mark the end of that. Okay, so one of these 2 is going to be the other green cell here. That's got to be green, which means there's not a lot of room for blue. Oh, small enough amount of room that it's going to abbreviate the amount of room that's left for greens. Yeah, we've got to be pretty close here. Okay, so this one must be green. That is in fact going to be the 4th green in that set there. I'm never quite sure what to say. Like, obviously we have the words row and column, but I'm never quite sure what to say about a group of blocks that's lined up in the Z dimension. It feels like it's also a row, just a Z row. Feels like that can't possibly be the correct nomenclature, right? There's got to be an established name for such a thing. Okay, so this must be green, completing this row here, which should give us the rest of the puzzle. Okay, that is a full-on slice of cake. Maybe not generally the way things go down where I eat breakfast, but you know, to each their own, I suppose. Not that I'm judging, because, you know, pancakes, and I certainly eat enough sugar. Let's see here. Just run through and mark the easy ones first. There's quite a lot of stuff that we can make blue right away here. And also sometimes other colors. Was there? No, okay, the bottom rows were not marked with 4s on those previous slices. Okay, so we are looking at a puzzle that is 8 deep. So a contiguous group of 6 is going to have 4, the four middle cells plus 2 on, you know, or 1 on each side, or 2 on one of the sides. But in any case, any group of 6 contains those 4 cells there. We have in fact finished the blue here, and there are no green hits, so we may as well just go ahead and burn them. here, connecting these into a contiguous group gives us a group of size 6. Same deal here. It's a good start. We can't do anything with this just yet because one of these cells is going to be blue, and it actually could be any of them. Any of them are perfectly valid options at this moment. Same deal here, but we can chip away some of this other stuff. Okay. And those 4. So that ought to be good. The 2 blue 4s that we just marked the outside of, on that dimension, the puzzle's only 6 cells wide. So we know that all of the cells in between the 2 greens must be blue. We also can see this pretty easily. And yeah, that stuff marks itself. Pretty straightforward. So we know you can't be blue, but we don't know anything else about you just yet. All right, how are we doing on those 6s? Yep, okay, we do in fact have 6 now. Unfortunately, those cells didn't have any hints on them from other axes, which means solving that didn't make anything else any easier or more obvious. And that is always a shame. Okay, here we go. Here's some obvious stuff, and that'll make these 2 Z groupings a little bit more straightforward. Okay, so one of these 2 and one of those 2. Unfortunately, that's not it's not actually resolvable at all. Okay, here things are a little bit better. One of them, oops, had the wrong paintbrush. One of them is isolated, and so we know must be part of the thing. Unfortunately, no, that getting marked green does do something for us. It removes this cell from possibly being part of that 4, which means that this 6 is now these 5 plus a corner cell, which means this can no longer be part of this row, which means that we just broke down one of those groups in that highly ambiguous 2-1 line. And then we can kind of chase that logic all the way around here. That'll put you there. And now we've solved the blue hint on this cell, but sadly not the green hint. It does mean, though, that we've made another cell in that row inaccessible, and that's certainly helpful. This makes 6. Okay, we're still not quite there yet. We have 2 cells marked here now. We're still not quite resolved. Okay. Right, I should probably like follow the hint lines when I'm not sure what the problem is. I do try to ignore them. Like I do find that they can be a little bit too guidey sometimes. All right, so just looking at these column markings, and I guess we can look at the row markings a little bit because we are actually solving some of them pretty quickly. This is looking like we can get a lot of information though just out of those columns. Is that one? Yes, this one is alone in its row this way, which allows us to remove the row this way right away as well. Oh, speaking of column markings, there's only 1 cell in each of those columns, which makes it pretty easy to mark this 4 down. We don't know about the cells with green hints, but the cells that are only blue hinted can certainly go then. This 6 is done, actually. Oh, but hold on, sorry. That cell has blue hints on it. This cell doesn't. This one can go. This 2 is good. This 2 is good. Connecting those into one contiguous group is good. And then I guess since we are running this from the edge, we know that the 6 extends to here at the very least. That creates a column with only 1 blue in it. And now we have a group of 4 with 2 gaps in it. So we have our 2 gaps. The remaining 1 cell is going to be in some cell that is adjacent to an already blue cell, so not this one. But because that cell could be green. We can't go deleting it yet. Okay, you two are good, and you get connected by this 4, which means we can delete the cells that just have the blue hints on them. Okay, yeah, that was pretty productive, actually. We know these are going to end up being blue for the sake of this 4, and once again, whenever you have a number of gaps that is only one off of the number of cells, never mind, I was going to say you can just go ahead and, they have to be sort of checkerboard spaced out, so you can just go ahead and delete stuff. But right, of course, everything here is potentially both colors, so it doesn't work that way. Everybody's got to be a challenge. So because a full row in this line, in this axis, is 8 tiles, a 4 is not enough to give us anything. Right, there are 2 different lineups that are both legal that share 0 spaces between them. So let's go work where we can do something. A 6 with its potentials looks like that. This 6 is almost finished. Okay. Oh, we have an edge here, so those 3s come from there. Is this cell? Yeah, so this cell is complete then. We have its 6 and we have its 3. We don't yet have the 4 along this axis. There's not much we can do there. This contiguous group of 4 here would require this cell to be green. We have a gap in the 4. I mean, that could space out in a lot of different ways here. We really don't have the information for that yet. This is 4 and 2. Okay, so there's actually only one way for this to work out in this current lineup. Well, there are 2 ways, I guess. A group of 4 with 2 breaks in it is necessarily going to manifest as a 1 and a 1 and a 2, right? Given the way these blocks are spaced, we know that the 2 and the 1 must exist in this 4 space with an open spot between them, which means the other one has to be here. And so one of these tiles is green and the other one is the spacer between the 2 and the 1. That's certainly helpful. Or at least I'm sure it will be. We don't have quite as much restriction anywhere else, which is unfortunate. Okay, contiguous group of 3 will have to use this tile. Contiguous group of 4 will have to use that tile. And then I accidentally right-clicked as I was scrolling through. This is only blue hints right now, so we can go ahead and delete that since we know it can't fit into the blue. Okay. And we're making headway. We're making some decent headway here. All right, once again, we have the 2, 2, 1. The 1s must be on the extreme edges. The 2 has to be taking up this space, and we don't know exactly where, but we know the middle will be part of it either way. That feels pretty significant. A 4 with 3 breaks in it is going to be the 2 on the end plus 2 of the 4 in here, although we don't know which ones yet. The 6 is done, and you don't have any other hints on you. Let's see here with the 4 with 3 gaps, the spaced out 4. We know that there will be exactly 2 blue cells on this side because there's no way to jam 3 together without 2 of them being adjacent to each other, which means there has to be 2 within these 3 cells, which tells us they have to be those 2, obviously. Here's the last green, and then we can delete cells that don't have blue hints on them that are outside the green range. Okay, I think we're getting really close to like a major breakthrough here that's going to allow us to delete a lot of stuff. So we've finished off this line. Still a lot of different colored stuff holding us up on deletions elsewhere. Okay, this has to be green at this point. This must be green to finish the 4 and the 4 with 2 gaps in it. This is also a 4 with 2 gaps in it. So, okay, because there's 6 spaces available for it, we know that it will utilize the endpoints at the very least. That'll provide some nice blocks for those blue spaces it has to work in. Okay, so here, this 4 and 1 could break down as either a 1 and a 3 or a 2 and a 2, given the space that we have available here. And unfortunately, because the group that goes in this side could be either a 2 or a 1, we can't mark any of these tiles because either one of them could potentially be empty. But every possible arrangement of 2 or 3 in this space is going to make this tile, or this voxel green at the very least. This cell. So that's useful. We can delete these since they're all blue hinted. And slowly but surely. This tile has no blue hint on it, and oh no, it does. It has a blue hint from this axis. I'm so eager to get stuff actually deleted. You know, it would ease things so much. But yeah, it's easier to see when we roll in on it from this side. Okay, so we can't make any other moves here. Here in this line, we know this must be blue. One of these two is blue. Here we know this must be blue. We got those two worked out. Here, this is going to have to be blue, and one of those two is as well. There are so many places where we have like just enough multicolored blocking that it's hard to know where we can and can't remove things. And this may be a weakness of my technique. And maybe once I've played more of these, I'll recognize better situations where a thing is marked in both directions, but it is safe to remove for whatever reason. The group of 4. No, never mind. There's a bunch of different ways that could work out. This stuff is all still like this. Oh, hold on. Since we've marked that blue, the only legal 4 set in this row is that. That probably is actually pretty significant because that's going to block up a lot of space. Okay, this blue is going to break up that group of 4 as well, which is pretty excellent news. Here. So we don't know for sure. Yeah, we don't. Okay, here we go. Here's something. This has to be blue since there's only one cell left in that column that isn't green or empty. Does that mean no, that this is not solved, sadly. Although, actually, no, never mind, it is. We know that this contiguous group of 3 can only run this way. So that's something. 4-3, we know you're blue. 6-2. Okay, this one's all green hits, so we can get rid of that because we know it's satisfied on greens. That completes the 2 and 1 there. And with that being completed, we should be able to, mark out quite cleanly what is green here. And then this block is actually solved. We have the 4 in this axis and the 4 in that axis. Hooray, we're finally removing things. Same for this block. It's got its 4 and its 4. This one has taken a little bit of doing to dig into. I appreciate y'all sticking with me. Okay, that's got to be part of a contiguous 3. We still can't really close in on that any further. This cell must be green, the classic 2 and 2 reason. This cell could still be white. It's hard to say. Okay, this cell is solved in both directions, so let's get rid of that. Yeah, we really need to get this row figured out. It would make things a lot easier. It is the holdup on deleting so much different stuff. Okay, you are also solved. Corners all worked out. Yeah, like once we can get rid of this row, it's gonna be so much easier to delete all of these extra cells that are just hanging around uncertain. Okay, hold on. So like this thing is telling us in this row we could delete some stuff. So we have a bunch of stuff that is not capable of being in the blue. And this one is also definitely not in the green in its line. Yeah, okay. This is something I guess I should have been noticing. While it is not the case that both the green and the blue hints are definitively worked out here, we know that the only cells in this row here that can be blue are this one and this one. So we know this cell cannot be blue and cannot be green, and thus is safe to remove. And the same is true for this one, actually. Yeah. I should have put myself on that sooner. Okay, this must be blue. This cell is safe to remove at this point. That can't be green. Here we have, oops, once again, I had the wrong paintbrush selected. You could still be part of the blue hint. There's a lot of potential blue hint left. This will have to be blue, which is probably going to be disruptive to that row, I assume. Yeah, it's going to require this to be green at the very least, which requires this to be blue to satisfy the column. And now we've got an anchor for that 4. So this cell can no longer be part of either the blue or the green. Neither can this one. That actually is very helpful. You must be blue. And that means you are solved in both the column and the row. Now note, although it's not technically solved from this axis, it's enough for us to know that this cell can't be blue because its column hint tells us that it can't be blue. It doesn't have to be safe on all sides as long as it's safe from being either color. That means this out here by itself definitely can't be blue. These ones are blue, so is that. And there you go, some eggs with bacon. Those are some mighty excited looking eggs. I suppose it's probably quite cold where they're having breakfast. Okay, we can delete the cells here that are just flagged blue. I figure at this point we may as well carry on to the end, right? Delete everything here that couldn't possibly be either blue or green. So this is 8 deep in this dimension, but that does mean that so this 6, we got 7 cells here, so we can mark the middle 5 of them at least. You guys are not marked from any other angle, so we can see that they are not going to fit into the big group for their row, and thus they can be deleted right now. Now that we have the 2 greens, we know this column can only look like this, which lets us clear out some stuff over here. We can complete these smaller groups. That 4 certainly won't reach that, at least. Over here we have kind of a similar thing. Now see, these we have to be careful about. These take the gap into account. And in fact, I think given that this is only 6 tiles, and we have to make room for a gap, these will have to be included. And then we know over here it's going to be these central 4 plus 1 of the edge pieces. I'm never quite sure. We can't delete this 3 because it could be blue. It has a blue hint from this axis, as you can see. Oh, but I should mark that because that is definitely green. Yeah, I'm never quite sure when I'm talking about a puzzle game, when I'm doing a let's play of a level of a puzzle game, like where exactly is the right amount of chatter? How much do I need to say what I'm doing, and how much of it is like, at what point does it come across as a little insulting for the viewer? Like for me to suggest that you need me to explain some simple thing that I'm doing. I'm always like a little nervous about it. All right, so that comes green like that. These will wash blue down here like this. And then is there anything else that we can definitely get? Well, this column only has 2 cells in it, so I suppose we can mark that one. No, this column also only has enough cells to be exactly marked out on it. This is only blues, so we can go ahead and delete that. Same deal here. The 4 is completed, actually. So you may as well mark that off. Unfortunately, a lot of these other cells do still have too many possibilities. Okay, well, we know these are not going to be part of contiguous groups of these largish numbers. Yeah, there we go. 5 looks like that. 6 will look like this, plus one of the ends. These groups of 4 will have to look like this, and that creates the outside boundings for our contiguous groups of 4 in the 2 top rows. And also this one, actually. Okay, we have 2 rows of 3 here that go down pretty easy. We can delete a couple of our cells in this row since we've already got our blue too, but we have to keep anything that could still be green. Same deal over here, actually. Okay. Sadly, this whole plate is just like big gaps and totally unreadable. Who knows? The right cells could be anywhere. Fortunately, this is a lot more workable. Okay, so you can't have another cell there. I would collide with the 2 thing here, which means this column finishes here. This one, we don't actually know where the remaining cell is going to be, and I think that's true here as well. So I guess let's just keep moving for the moment. We have just enough space to fit a green 5 in here, and here, and here's your blue. And blue and green. Could speed this up a little bit by actually using the keyboard shortcuts instead of always clicking. Okay. So we know that the blue... Any one of these tiles could be the blue. We don't actually know anything. I don't know why I started talking like that. This must be blue, and then one of these 2. That's probably something as far as that sort of outside column goes. Looks like we can safely clear these. We have finished off their number. You can take on a 5 since this became blue. This is still a little uncertain. This is still a little uncertain. But we're getting there. Piece by piece, we're getting there. All right, these 2 have no other markers, so if they can't be blue, they just get deleted. Same deal here. This can be green since this can't, but I think I still can't remove this for the moment because we don't know what's going on in that blue axis. And, you know, I deleted that, but I immediately regret it. It's clear this way, but it's not clear in either of the blue directions. And in fact, I think nothing else here is clearable just yet. Oh, well, okay. If this is a group of 3 with 1 gap in it, we have a 4-space gap to cover with that. So that tells us this can't be a part of it. Wait. No, it doesn't. That totally could. What was I talking about? I was thinking since this cell needs to be... Well, no, this cell doesn't need to be in the shape. I don't know what I was thinking. Trying to explain errors made in the puzzle game logic. This cell is clear on both sides, so that's fine to take out. Now at this point we can guarantee, since we took the row out by the 2, we can guarantee this cell is lit up, and that means these ones can go away. And then this must complete the blue, which means that in order to have enough tiles for the green, For the green of this row, we have to go here. And now this column is solved. And that dug something out of another row over there. So we'll go check that out in just a moment. 2, 2, 2. I don't know that we have any other changes settled here just yet. Nor here. These can both get deleted. And I think now this axis is gonna resolve pretty nicely, or at least parts of it are. So we know that's green, or that's blue. We know this must be green. One of these two is as well, but we don't know which. This must be blue, and then one of these two, but we don't know which. But in any case, this will perform good disruption for that 5. And we will check that out presently. This has got to be blue, which should do some things for that 4. And that means this has to be blue, this has to be blue to avoid adjacency. All of that has to be blue. And then this column still needs a blue, but honestly, it could be, aside from this one, could be either of them. Well, I guess, sorry, we know this one can't be blue because it's not blue via this row. And the same deal here. This one can't be blue because it's not blue via this row. So this is the only tile in this column that can still be blue. We just can't delete these yet because they could be green. And then we can go ahead and take out this stuff, which is solved for all colors. Also, we've created boundaries for our group of 4 in this row. 3 and 3, we can delete that. This 5 can be taken down. There's one more green marker to make here somewhere in each of these rows, but it's not clear which one's where just yet. It's fine, we'll come back to it. This is completed. These must both be green, but now those are completed. So that means this row here has its two green separators, so we know which tiles belong to the blue groups. Did I? Yeah, I did screw that up. There should be another green in that column, but the way we've got this resolved, there couldn't be. Hold on, let me do this part right. Yeah, so that's gonna have to be green for sure. Did I just misread a hold on, can I uncolor these? So we need a 2 with a split that's green from this column, but we do need a 2 with a split from green, or that's blue from these rows. So this tile, this thing right now is telling me that it needs to be both blue, both green and blue. Oh, I made an error somewhere. Oh, hold on. There's a thing here that's not yet done. So this shouldn't be green. This should be blue. It's got all the greens in this row are locked up. Ah, yeah, but I have got an error here. Oh, well, this can't be green because of this. So this is the tile that's likely in error, right? And then that tile being wrong led to me getting some other things wrong. Oh, no, wait, sorry. That marking is blue. We have to have a blue sequence. That's... Why did I think this was green, though? Unclear. Well, this one, I don't quite see what I did wrong as easily. It's weird that there's not another problem somewhere else, right? You would expect if I had swapped two cells' identities that it would create two problems. Because now any one of these being adjusted, like this becoming green to split the two blues up, is going to create a problem with this row having too many greens in it in total. Yeah, very strange. Okay, so we have a green 2 with a 1 split this way, a green 2 with a 1 split this way, a green 6 coming from the other way. So actually, hold on a second. This tile can't be blue, right? Oh, no, okay, that hint is blue. I was going to say, if all the hints on all of its sides are green, then it can only be green. But no, this one is blue. It's just a little harder to tell. When it's satisfied, it grays out quite a lot. So this tile could legitimately be either green or blue. That's true of this cell as well. And it's actually true of this cell as well, right? Because that's a blue hint and that's a green hint. Yeah. So all of these cells have both blue and green set around them. The thing is, for this to be wrong the way it is, one thing that these games do allow you to do is click load valid state here on the pawns menu, and it will rewind you to the last move you made where the puzzle state had no mistakes in it. But I might have made the mistake that causes this problem an awfully long time ago. Let's click this button and see how far back it winds us. Okay. We were still valid here. This is pretty far back. But we can make some moves here. We can try to reach an ending without making the same error. So we know this row's correct. Let's try to be a little bit more cautious with my logic this time. So the blues are finished here. We can delete those. We still don't quite have these 6s tracked down. There's one more in each of these. Okay. We can remove both of those. So I'm wondering why this is the point where I made the error. I guess this has to be blue. And then one of these two is going to be blue. This can't be green. But it could be blue, because it does have a blue hint on it. We don't know which one of these is going to delete, unfortunately. 6, 2, 6, 1. This is solved, but only from the green axis. This is solved from green. Okay, but not from blue, sadly. That is a legitimately unsolved block. Just looking for the errors here. So, like, the 2s and 1s will have to be on this side, or have to be in this space on this thing, since they can't be next to each other, obviously. Here we are only left enough space to continue our blue, to finish our blue. And then here we know this can't be blue, but we don't know anything else about it. But now that we've had to color in some of this stuff, it does leave us with just enough room to complete the shape. This actually should be deleted, so we have that 6 worked out already. And then we can see that this end we've got our greens worked out. So we know that this tile cannot be green. It must, in fact, it must be blue to satisfy that. And same deal here. It must be blue to satisfy that. And then that must be green, and that must be green. And that must be blue. And that's all good. That's fine. This is in fact 6 blues, so we can clip this. Need one more green marked over here. Okay. Y'all both need to be green, which means this needs to be blue, which means this doesn't need to be blue. This tile is solved. Okay, yeah. Weird little mistake. Where are we at on this? We are in fact a single puzzle away from finishing the scene. Let's just go ahead and finish it. So let's cut off all the trivials. Are we? Yes, we are. 8 cells deep on this axis here, so we can go ahead and just color in these 8s all the way. The 2 runs up to here. A 5 will need right these 2 cells, and then three more cells heading out toward one of the sides. Be the same there. The 8's like this. 6 with a 1 will necessarily have to occupy the tiles that far apart. Also, this, I think, is the only... Yeah, this is the only cell in its row. And there's no greens up here, so we can just go ahead and do that. This time, it is a contiguous 6, and so it looks a little bit more like that. All right, all that stuff's good. So we have some 8s on this other axis too, and it looks to me like if we just draw in all of these places where the size of the group gives away some element of its position, we're going to have a lot of stuff done. We're going to be pretty close to the edge of the puzzle here. So, okay, those 5 plus those 4, and this doesn't have any hints on it, so we know it's not part of this line, and we can just go ahead and remove it. Or it doesn't have any non-green hints, you know what I mean? 3s. This 3 is actually finished. Yeah, these are just green, so they can be removed for sure. Did I miss? Nope, that's the first. This is just the first 8 in a while, legitimately. Anything that doesn't have a green marker on it can be deleted here because we know we're done with our blues. And this, it turns out, is only green markers, so good, healthy spring cleaning there. We're getting a lot of freedom to destroy blocks here. Not a ton of this stuff still going on. Oh, what did I do? I did something silly. This I was totally right about. That's only four cells lit up. You can't take those. You have to draw in 2 more. Now I'm assuming it's probably going to be the 6s, but we don't fill in cells based on assumptions. It's against the spirit of the whole exercise. So we can delete you, and in fact, all the rest of the stuff in this top row. This, though, we can't delete still because it might be... Yeah, this might be green. We can delete this one for being too far away from the group. Okay, this group of 5 is finished already. As is 6 plus 1. As is 6. Okay, yeah, we're making like real fast headway on this one. Feels like. All right, so now we have these groups that are asking for 6 blocks to be filled in that have had their wings clipped, so to speak. So it's pretty easy to get them what they want. That is, in fact, a full set of 5. Pretty easy to highlight. Still some stuff going on here. Okay, so this is, in fact, only 6 total blue cells. We can't delete any of this stuff because it's all potentially just green. But now we've got ourselves something to work with here. Shearing huge chunks off the side of the puzzle. Always my favorite moment in the solution of these things, where you nail something and you could just cut 60% of what is left away. Very satisfying stuff. Okay, y'all can go. And as we get rid of more and more stuff, more and more of these smaller numbers are completely holding down their line by themselves, which is certainly handy. All right, do you even need that 5 up there? No, you absolutely do not. How about you? No, absolutely do not. Okay, this block is definitely actually finished. All right, and there's our pancakes. And so, we have completed an entire scene. I thought I could zoom in on them. I guess I can't here. But hey, that looks pretty good. I wouldn't mind sitting down at that table. So as you can see here, yeah, 15 puzzles to a group. That does not remain uniformly true throughout. Some of them are going to get a lot more complicated. And yeah, you can see here they have a variety of scenes, a variety of different sorts of things to build. Just so many puzzles, y'all, for real. Yeah, that's Voxelgram 2. I'm enjoying it a whole bunch. It's pretty cheap. It's a lot of fun puzzles. The logic is very satisfying to apply. And if you are into a challenge, I am absolutely certain that it is going to get very challenging to work this 2-color system later on. I was challenged enough by some of the Voxelgram 1 puzzles later when they get to, 15, 16 size. So I'm very much looking forward to the end game of this one. That is going to be it for us for today. Thank you all so much for watching. When you come back next time, we'll be jumping into something new. I don't even know what it is yet, so come back then to resolve the suspense, and we'll see you then.